friends, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen, the Family Connection podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Samantha Hayes, educator, parent, and founder of Beyond the Screen Families. And today we have a special guest with us, Dr. Michaeleen Doucleff. She has spent over a decade reporting on children's health for NPR. She has a PhD in chemistry, has spent over a decade working in a lab as a chemist. She is a New York Times bestselling author of the book Hunt, Gather, Parent, and recently launched her new book, Dopamine Kids, which if you haven't heard me talk about, you just need to go get it. And she's also a mother and a daughter. It always fascinates me when I introduce women because we have all of these titles that like go along with us. And I'm like, woo, it makes me tired from the get-go. Thank you and welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, Michaeleen, let's start out with, you talked about this a little bit in Dopamine Kids, but what were you seeing, maybe some of your work with NPR or just seeing in your own world with your daughter, your own family habits in the world that led you to decide, like, I really need to write this book?
Yeah, it's like kind of three layers. It's like, first of all, people were emailing me like out of the blue without, I cover global health, telling me like something is wrong with our daughters, like teenage girls. Like I would get these emails and it really started making me kind of, what's going on? Like, they would tell me these antidotes. And actually it started making me look at myself. And I started to realize like, wow, I have a problem with my phone. Like I am obsessed. And I remember like I talk about in the book, like I was at the beach one day with Rosie. She was like around 4 and my daughter, and I couldn't enjoy this beautiful day at the beach. I was like checking my text, checking email, checking social media, and I was obsessed. And I was just like, kind of like this epiphany of like, what's wrong with me? What, because I was starting to realize that it wasn't making me happy. Like it was actually like making me anxious and sad and like, but I couldn't stop. And so I started to really like study what was going on. And then at the same time, Rosie was growing and we would follow the advice of pediatricians. I think we give her like an hour of screen time, no more than 2 hours after dinner. And it became harder and harder to get her to stop. And I was like, okay, these three things, something is going on. And like, I want to figure out why do I struggle so much to get her off the screen at night? Why am I struggling so much? And so I started studying the neuroscience of like how these devices and apps work on our brains. And I started realizing something really surprising that like actually limiting these things and what works with them isn't depriving us of pleasure, like taking away pleasure, accepting more boredom, but the opposite, like reclaiming pleasure in many ways and creating more joy and happiness in our lives. And once I realized that, I was like, okay, I want to write this book because I want to give this to other families too. And it works. Like when you start thinking of it and applying limits with screens in a way that brings more joy and happiness, then the screens go away pretty easily, and life fills up with so much color and optimism, and it just gets easier.
That was one thing, like I'm in this work of like helping families with alternatives, but reading Dopamine Kids, all of a sudden I went, oh, like I identified with you so much in it as well. Like I sat there and I go, ooh, I need to check my own habits right now because what is
wow,
happening?
good for you. Good for you. It's hard, right? It's hard to say like, oh, like I've got a problem, but I am the first. I am the first. I am the worst in the first in the household,
Yes.
but it was interesting because once I realized it and like I started using some of the tools that like behavioral psychology has, like, I just started feeling so much better. And I started just being like, wow, life is easier, less stressful, and like I enjoy things much more. And I'm not embarrassed by it. Like I first to say like I need these habit tools the most. And once I kind of fixed myself too in many ways, Rosie just came with me. Like it was shocking how much easier it was once I was kind of in charge of my phone, instead of the phone being in charge of me,
Yes,
So-
yes, I do. I just told somebody like when Twitter first came out, I had to have a Twittervention.
Oh wow. Okay, I Twitter was my problem too. To be honest with you, like really, like how did you have a Twitter invent?
Like
Twitter
I
invention?
was because I was my justification was, oh, but I'm connecting with other professionals. I'm getting research. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was the
Mm-hmm. Me too.
justification I kept telling myself of why I need to be on it, why I needed to be
Yeah.
doing this and this. And I was checking it in the car and
Yeah.
like, I mean, all of those real scary, like, what? I'm doing this in the car, but my
Yeah.
brain was just so. And I remember my husband saying something, and he said, did you post this when you were driving here? And I went, and he's like, we need to sit down and talk.
Mm,
So like that
yeah, right.
prompted this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was the same. I was totally the same. And in fact, one time I put my phone in the trunk of the car. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go on this drive without my phone. And we were like on this like two-lane highway, and I like literally pulled over so I could get my phone out of my like, this is not in the book. There was some version of it is like I was like, what are you doing? Like, and it was Twitter. It was like social media. It's
Yes.
like it had this like force over me.
Yes.
And it wasn't the key was like me also feeling like this is not making me happier. Like
Uh-huh.
that checking
Uh-huh.
that did not
Uh-huh.
improve my
Uh-huh.
life. This was
Uh-huh.
not like like a reward like we think of it as, right? It was in many ways making me sadder
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that was like, okay, something's really off here. And that fit with what people were emailing me about their teenage girls,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was like they're on social media, they can't get off of it, and they're not happy. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is not making them happy, and yet they still are being pulled to it, you know? And that's really what dopamine does. People don't realize it. It's not about just joy and happiness and pleasure. It's about being pulled to things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and sometimes they bring us pleasure, but sometimes they don't. And in fact, over the long run, they often rob us of pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you highlighted that because that was going to be what I asked was you even address it in the book at the fact of like what we originally thought dopamine was. I always think of Legally Blonde and
Mm.
dopamine's
Oh,
the
tell
happy
me.
chemical and happy
Oh,
people,
does she say that in that movie? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to
yes.
look it up. That's
Uh
so great.
it's happy people don't kill their husbands. Like there's this whole like dopamine thing and really like you highlight that that's not I mean it's not that like
It's not that, right? There's been this like myth and misconception in science, in neuroscience, that we do things and we do things obsessively, right? Over and over and over again
mm-hmm,
because it's just all about seeking pleasure and we just want more and more pleasure, right? We're just these pleasure seekers. And in the last like 20, 30 years, like neuroscience is like, nope, this is not it. It is about wanting and craving. And yes, sometimes we should want things that make us happy, but these devices and products we have split apart this system. So we end up wanting things that don't bring us pleasure and rob us of pleasure. And social media is a really good example of that. And what I felt too, right? That we're on it for professional gain, to like for me, I was really lonely and I thought it was like helping me with my loneliness, but it was actually doing the opposite. And
mm-hmm,
it does the opposite for a lot of kids. And yet I was still on it. You know, I was still like chasing that connection and that, fulfillment for a friendship and that's the trick, right? Of these things. But the good news is the dopamine system is like super flexible, especially little kids and as parents, like we can really swap out the screens, swap out the ultra processed foods and swap in what we want once we have the right tools and the right steps.
mm-hmm,
Humans are amazing. We can fall in love with and find pleasure in so many things if we
mm-hmm,
just experience it and also have the right perception of it.
mm-hmm.
So,
So why do you think, I mean, I think you alluded to it a lot, but the why are kids, today's kids,
mhm.
experiencing dopamine so differently than
Yeah.
I mean, than probably you and I growing up, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes, for sure. For sure. It is a big difference. And the difference is for the first time like ever in human history, we are kids are surrounded by these products, apps, games, devices, foods that are intentionally designed by multi-billion dollar companies who fully admit this and fully say these products that are designed for overuse, overconsumption. The food is intentionally designed to make us overeat, to make kids snack all day, like they've engineered snacking, to never feel satisfied. The games are designed that way, very sophisticated AI algorithms, social media, sophisticated AI algorithms to get kids to stay on it 24 hours a day. Like a YouTube engineer told me, like our goal of the whole department is to get kids on YouTube 24 hours a day,
It's
right?
crazy.
It's crazy, right? And they're not admitting this so much now because they're in legal trouble, but
Mhm.
there's a long history of this is what we do, right? This is our goal. And other parents, other generations never face this, right?
Mhm.
And so the problem isn't trying to fix this problem. It isn't lack of effort from parents or lack of, you know, trying everything that we're told. It's lack of good advice and guidance that works that is the problem. And it's not the kids' fault too. That's the thing. It's not the parents or the kids. Like the kids' brains are just doing what they engineered, they evolved to do, right? And
Mhm.
but we just haven't had really good guidance about how these products work and tools to counter them. And that's really what I wanted this book to be, is like some guidance that actually works with these things, because the advice we have out there is so outdated and so many levels.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I want to dive into that too, like your practical advice, because that's for me, like I'm like, there are easy steps, which I won't go into it now, but just like even the beaver and the brower birds, like
Yes.
I sat down and I said to my kids, I was like, you are this kid and you are this kid, like, and they were like,
I love
what? And my daughter took note and now she talks to me about it all the time. But like,
Oh,
it's
interesting.
just identifying like those kinds of things even. So we'll talk about that too. But
Okay.
um what are some signs if a parent is,
Mm.
like, is my kid dopamine addicted?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
are
And like,
signs that they can
right,
like
that it's
look
like too
for?
much. Yeah. So these things, dopamine is wanting. And so it's this very strong wanting. It's like, I need this to survive. And I think we all as parents know that feeling that kids have. Like, I'm gonna die without this. And that is dopamine. It's like this is needed for survival. And so I think these devices and apps and games and crank this desire up, but actually dial down pleasure and enjoyment, because pleasure also involves satisfaction. So feeling like, I'm full, I have enough. Like when you're really thirsty and you drink water and then you're just like, it feels so good. I'm done. I don't need any more water, right? That's how the system is supposed to run. Okay, I want this food. Okay, I eat the food. It feels good. I'm done. I can wait a while before I want more food. Like that's how our brain evolved to work. But what we see is that the kid wants the iPad, the kid wants a game, and then 30 minutes later, the kid wants some more. I want more, 5 more minutes, one more level, right? And there's this kind of what's next, what's next, what's next. And this is like a sign that the child, the adult can't handle this product, right?
Mhm.
It's too stimulating. It's too much. It's cranking up their dopamine system too much. So they're not getting enough pleasure and satisfaction from it, right? To turn it off. Pleasure in many ways is the opposite of dopamine, because it's like, I'm done. It's the break,
Mhm.
right? And so I think a kid that you try to stop and is like, can't, and gets really upset and angry, this is a sign that like the technology is just too strong for them. The right. And I tell parents a lot, it's like it's not about getting rid of everything, but it's about finding like, can my kid handle this? Are they ready for it? And again, like you said, like my generation when I was a kid, kids can handle most of the technologies, right? Like most of the apps, the TV wasn't so addictive,
Right.
right? But that has changed. These things are not these are not normal products,
Mhm.
right? These are designed to create this relationship with the kid, to hold them on there. And so I think anything that becomes like a struggle, and that's what I follow in our house. First, it's like, okay, new technology, new app, new whatever. Okay, what's the purpose? Why are we doing this? Is it for entertainment? Okay. And then if it's for entertainment, can she handle it?
Mhm.
Can she stop even after
Mhm.
15 minutes and be okay?
Mhm.
Right. And if she can't, then
Mhm.
she's not ready for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how I see it.
There, you're the can she stop? I think about people are talking a lot about this, about like break having kids watch old TV shows versus the
Yes.
new stuff,
Yes.
and how kids can watch old TV shows or old movies. Or I
Mm.
watched Land Before Time just a little bit ago with my kids and was like, oh, the color in here is so drab, and then realizing
Yes.
like, oh, I've become like, oh,
A
those bright
custom.
colors like are really, but and they'll talk about like my kid can just walk away, or my
Right.
kid will walk away and play. It doesn't just like grab their
Yes.
attention and keep them
Yes.
in it.
Yes. And like, and that is this like this pull, right? I call them in the book magnets. Motivation. The
Uh-huh.
neuroscientists call them motivational magnets. It's this pull that like watch a kid in a room, they will go right to a TV,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
right? Like even
Uh-huh.
adults, right? Or they will go right to the cookies, like at
Yes.
like
Yes.
at a
Yes.
like event, right? Like that's the magnet, right? And TV is so designed, even old school TV, but yes, even more like YouTube and what we have,
Uh,
cartoons we have today and stuff, to constantly pull the kid's attention back. It uses this very ancient system in our brain that causes us to pay attention to lights, flashing lights. Because if
mhm.
you think about it, like we evolved in a savanna, in an African savanna, and like if there was a flashing light and you would look at it. It'd be like,
Yes.
what? What is that?
Yes.
Right? So it's
Yes.
like it's kind of exploiting that. And the system is not designed to just see that over and over and over and over and over, right? It pulls everyone into what psychologists call a dark flow, where
Mhm.
you kind of lose track of time and who you are and where you are. And like um and this can be very hard to pull out of, especially for a child. And if you see that, I think, it say, okay, this technology is not right for us. You can also try to fix it, modify it so that it's easier, right? Like what you did, right? Instead of watching these very like modern shows, watch older ones that aren't so sticky. Somebody told me yesterday that their family only buys video games. Like they don't use the free ones, because then the
Wow.
the ones you purchase, I know the ones you purchase are designed to get the kid or the person to like end, right? There's like a
Uh-huh.
start
Uh-huh.
and a finish and an
Uh-huh.
end, and you feel satisfied, right? Because they want you to buy another one, right? Whereas
Yes.
the free
Yes.
ones, they just want you to sit there on it,
Yes.
right? And so
Fascinating.
there's
I never
lots.
thought about that.
I know, me too. And if you think about it, like in the 80s and 90s, that's how video games worked,
Yes.
right? And so we've moved to this different business model, and that business model is wants our kids to be on it 6, 7 hours a
Uh-huh.
day, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, and so I think you can like decide, okay, we're gonna wait, or we're gonna like somehow modify it so that it's easier for kids to stop and walk away and can handle it. For a while, Rosie had a hard time handling audiobooks, especially on the phone, because there's just so many, and it's just, there's the pictures, and it's like this thing, and so we moved to a different device where there's no pictures and there's not unlimited, and then now she's 10 and she has a easier time handling it on the phone. So you can kind of see like,
Mhm.
and I tell her too. I say like, if you're gonna get upset and angry at me at the end, then we're not going to do it. Like I tell her all the time, like everyone deserves leisure activities that leave them feeling happy and satisfied and good and optimistic with the world, and not angry at your
Mhm.
parents,
Mhm.
and really upset. I mean, that is the sign, right?
Mhm.
Is that the,
Mhm.
the kid is angry and upset and sad afterwards. Well, that's not a good leisure activity, right?
No. No. We have that same rule in our house too. Like, oh, temper tantrum. Okay, we need to not.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Like we don't need to do, and in foods too. If the
Hmm.
food, if the ice cream makes you scream afterwards, literally, like
Hmm.
because you're so
Hmm.
angry that it's over, like let's try a different dessert.
Right.
Right? There's something, we don't have to have those things.
Yeah.
So,
How do you how do you see that, like that just high stimulation? How is this related to boredom? I think we have a
hmm
boredom
hmm
problem, but
hmm hmm
or
hmm
a lack of boredom problem in our
yes,
world right now. And
yes.
how do you see those connected?
Yeah. I think I see boredom. Boredom is a really interesting topic. I see boredom as like there's nothing in my environment that I've enjoyed.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You know,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
like kids will come over to our house. We don't have much screen activity, and they'll come over and they'll be like, "I'm bored," and it's because we don't have so much screen activity, and they
Mhm.
haven't built in their brains dopamine and wanting for anything but.
Mm.
Right. And so,
Mhm.
like, I didn't really realize, but you have to experience something to want it and have a desire for it to build that dopamine pathway. You have to experience before you want to go play outside or ride your bike or go to a friend's house. You kind of have to experience the fun of it. And then your brain says, oh, this is rewarding. I like this. I want to do this. Right. But if a child has never experienced that or experienced building a fort or, trying to create little uh for a while Rosie would like to create little like elfin worlds in the bushes like like these things that if a child has never done something like that then they don't have the neurological pathways to want it, and I think what comes out is I'm bored, right? It's to me that's a signal of like I don't have a screen, and I've never experienced the joy of anything but the screen,
Mhm.
right? And so from a parenting perspective, for me, that's like, okay, let's figure out something you'd like to try that
Mhm.
seems interesting. And I'm going to help you try it and I'm going to help you get started and and help you enjoy it. And then once you enjoy it a few times, you're going to want to do it.
Mhm.
And when that's available, you're going to build that brain pathway. The car is an interesting one. Like if when Rosie had the screen in the car, then she had to have the screen in the car.
Mhm.
It was like the car is
Mhm.
like a signal, screen time into her brain. That's how the dopamine
Mhm.
system works, like in context. So I'm in the car, screen time. And then when we decided, okay, you know what? We're going to change it up. We're instead of car is going to be screen time, car is going to be coloring or reading or working on your journal. Um, and and so you can easily swap out that like I want the screen for I want to color. I want to make bracelets. That's a lot of the book is about this idea of like replacing it with something that actually does fill the child with joy and happiness. And then the child learns, oh, I'm bored. I'm going to go make a bracelet.
Mhm.
I'm going to go color. I'm going to go work on my art. I'm going to go outside, right? And so switching that trigger from I'm bored equals screen to I'm bored equals this thing that actually leaves me feeling really good and gives me purpose and builds up my skills as a human being.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that more? Because now let's get into the book, like more of the
Yeah.
things you're recommending. Because that's one thing you say in there is the fact that scientists find that like you can't just cut something out, right? It's not
Yes,
just cut and
that's right.
bam, your kid's going to be able to just replace it. It's really about being intentional.
Yes. Yes.
And so
Yes.
you have like all the fundamentals you talk about and stuff. Can you
Yes.
like highlight more of that for everybody? So,
Yes. Yeah. So for one thing, behavioral psychology, like last 20 years, is responsible for these screen habits that we all
yeah.
have. That they use their findings to create these very strong habits on the screen. But you can use the same advice to counter it. And that's really what I'm trying to do in the book. And one of the things that behavioral psychology tells us is it's much easier to break a habit if you already have another habit there, right, in place. And so if I just say to Rosie, so at some point we decided, okay, I was so tired of pulling her off YouTube and Netflix. I was so done. I think one night she had like a massive tantrum and like hid under the desk and was like whimpering. And I was just like, what? Why are we doing this? Like, what? Why? And so I was like, okay, we're not gonna have uh, screen time after dinner. Dinner is going to be for something else. And so I asked her, I figured out what she was dying to do, what she already had motivation and dopamine to do. That's really the key is you want to figure out what they want to do, or at least have some sort of desire for, what gets them their lights up their eyes. Because if they don't want to do it, then it's never going to compete with the screen, right? Like it's just, they're going to hate you for it, right? Like they're going to get
Mm-hmm.
so mad. So instead of saying like, okay, Rosie, no more screen tonight, go to your room and do independent play, which would not work. Like she would scream and eventually the screen would come back because she's got to do something during this time. I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I'm going to teach you to do what you've been dying to do, and I haven't had a chance. And that was ride your bike alone to the market. And so, what I'm doing here is I'm replacing this thing that gives her all this dopamine with something that gives her a lot of dopamine. It's exciting and interesting and something she's already wants to do, but it actually fulfills her needs as a human, right?
Mhm.
Because all little kids need adventure and autonomy and purpose in life. And so I got her out of the living room. I had the bikes all ready, and we like rode around the neighborhood, and I started to teach her to bike by herself. And she really got forgot about that Netflix. I mean, it did come up, it did like arise, but there was no tears, there was no crying because she had real adventure in her life. So instead of like watching other kids in cartoons and YouTube have adventure, she had real adventure.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of the key of this method is like, okay, why is the kid using the screen? What are they trying to get out of it? And can we find a replacement that meets those needs or at least divert some of that motivation to this activity that really brings pleasure and joy and not just that content cycle of wanting.
Mhm.
And there's lots of tricks, there's lots of ways to do it, because I was actually really surprised to learn that kids are on these screens, video games, social media, YouTube, because they're trying to fulfill these needs in their life, and the screen is designed to tap into that, but they never actually can, and that's what the kid never feels satisfied.
And that's lonely. Like I like that
Yeah,
just I
yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
lonely.
it is.
It yeah, it just it like makes my
It's
heart
sad.
sad, right? Like
Yeah, it's sad, right? And I think we were told that these things were going to fulfill kids'
yeah,
needs, right?
yeah,
And like
yeah.
social media is going to help them connect or and video games help them have adventure and like and but the data are really starting to be very clear that it can't,
Mhm.
because a video game is not real adventure. It's missing really fundamental components of it.
Mhm.
And social media, the data tell us oftentimes make kids lonelier,
Mhm.
right? And so that's why they kind of stay on it too, is because they're just trying to get there and it feels like
Yeah.
they're going to get there. That's why I was on Twitter. I was like, but this is supposed to make me less lonely, less lonely. But somehow but it was making me lonelier because I wasn't actually going out and making
Yes.
friends.
Yes.
And I,
Yes.
I think for kids, that's also the problem.
Yes, yeah. In the book, what I love when you dive into like the various fundamental needs to help you figure out like who is your kid at the heart, like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
would be a good replacement activity for them
Right.
instead
Where to
of just
start?
like shooting in the dark and being like, I hope this one sticks. I'm not going to have any temper tantrums. Like just really thinking about your child and like experimenting and saying, okay,
Yeah.
this one is going to be the initial lure that
Yeah.
helps my kids see that real life is so much better.
Yes, exactly. That is the thing. And then
Yeah.
treating it that way too, right? Like I started paying attention like how I talk about biking versus cartoons and it was like, oh, if we are positive and celebrate these things offline, kids want to do them. They get
Yes.
excited about it, right? It's exactly right. Like, and there's recent data that came out last year when I was finishing the book that showed that if you ask kids, they would rather be like outside with real people
Mhm.
than inside like on a game. They'd,
Mhm.
they'd rather real life over
Mhm.
virtual life. And so let's start celebrating it and treating it that way. Like this is the reward, right? Like
Mhm.
after
Mhm.
you do your homework, after you do well in math, like let's go on a hike, let's go to the pool, let's do something outside that you really want to do.
Yes.
The reward in our family for it is real life activities. It's not screen time. And I think that's such an important message to send to kids. It's like, this is what really brings us joy. This is what we work hard for, not to sit 5 hours by myself on a
Mhm.
computer,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So
Disconnected, but supposedly connected. Like,
yeah, yeah. And
uh-huh.
like losing track of myself
Uh-huh.
and, and I think another thing that one of the researchers was like really hitting at home with me was like these habits are like lifetime habits,
Mhm.
right? That like the habit of like, oh, my family goes to the pool or oh, I play outside after school. Like the kid carries that with them,
Mhm.
that love of being outside, that
Mhm.
love of art. And it doesn't have to be all the time. You don't have to
Right.
replace every moment.
Right. Right.
It's just seeding this joy of real life and other things and making space for it
Mhm.
in your family. And Like I say, shoot for 80%. And if you get 50%, that's like amazing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know?
and I think it goes along. One of the things that my book is highlighted all over the place, but one of the things that you said that like really hit me was our job as parents has changed.
Yes.
We now
Yes.
have to protect our children from the cues and magnets. And you talked about the cues and magnets, and you just kind of brought them up again that the products create. Can you like
Yes.
highlight just a little bit more of that?
Yes.
That for me was like oh.
Yes. And for me too, when I finally understood how this works, I was like, for myself, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder
Yeah.
I can't put my phone down, right?
Yes.
So so we think that like dopamine happens when we use the device or we eat the food. And it's true, it does, especially at the beginning, you get it, and that's telling you to do it again, basically. Um, but over time, that dopamine hit happens much earlier, and it happens when we see the device or we think about the device or we're in the context that we use the device. So let's say Rosie comes home from school every day at 4 and in the living room she uses the iPad. So eventually, very quickly, probably like in a couple weeks, her brain will start triggering dopamine just walking in the door because
Mhm.
it's
So
this
fast.
signal of like this is iPad time, and
Mhm.
her and that trigger. So the dopamine hit, quote unquote, happens before you even touch it. Is what makes you, what draws you to it. And so that living room in that time. And then if the iPad is sitting there, that iPad, it will trigger the dopamine, and then she will be pulled to the iPad, and it'll be like, I want the iPad. And really she will think of nothing else, right? It'll be
Mhm.
very difficult to get her to go outside or read a, God forbid, read a book. No way. There's just no way that's going to happen. So, and so understanding that over time we paint these cues all over our life. So I was checking my phone like at stop signs in the car, in the kitchen while I was making dinner, like basically every 5 to 10 minutes of my life, right? Like just kind of,
Mhm.
and so I was painting cues all over my life for it, like it, and I was triggering that desire to check my phone, check my phone, check my phone. And so when I took it away, it was uncomfortable because it was like I'd had all this dopamine, check my phone, check my phone, check my phone. But what it tells us is like, what we need to do as parents is create these times and places in kids' lives where those cues are not there, right?
Mhm.
Where the iPad is just gone. It is not an option. And
Mhm.
very quickly, like in days, the child will start to create cues for other things. So, if you I put all the devices when we stopped having them after dinner. I hid them all in the dryer. I was like, I don't want her ever to find them, and we don't really use the dryer here in West Texas.
Mhm.
So, and I was like, and I would feel really stupid like digging out the device, from the
Just to go
dryer.
check it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like, what's wrong with me? So they stayed there for a couple weeks, like some of them. I was just like, I'm so done with these things. Not all of them, but basically it was like it's gone.
Mhm.
It is not an option. You can't just put it like in a drawer where they know where it is because it's a magnet. It works through drawers, right? And they'll be pulled to it. You have to really make them believe it's gone. If you want to retrain their brain and rewire their brain, it's gone during this context, this time and place.
Mhm.
And very quickly, then their brains will learn, okay, 4 o'clock after school, that's the time I ride my bike. That's the time I go
Mhm.
outside. Or if it's raining, that's the time I work on my whittling project or my whatever it is, like Rosie is like jewelry making and she makes little quill cards now and stuff. And it's like, and you can see her brain working. She's like, what do I do now? And she's kind of like thinking, like, what are the options, right? And if an iPad is available, that will be the choice.
Because it's
You
easy.
know, yeah, and it's intentionally designed to become a magnet,
Mhm.
right? It's intentionally
Mhm.
designed to crank up her dopamine and her desire, whereas like her piano is not. It's
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
intentionally designed to do that. And these things just can't, these things from the 80s and 90s, they can't compete, And so you have to, like you said, create some time and space for other things. Otherwise, the data are clear. By the time they're 14, 15, they're spending most of their waking hour on the phone, right?
Mhm.
And it's interesting. I've talked to parents who have followed some of this advice and their kids are now teenagers, and they tell me that the old habits, even though the phone comes in, the old habits are there. And those old habits of like being offline and enjoying offline life will stay in their brain. They are there and they'll be able to access them if they decide, in their 20s, like, oh, this phone life is just not for me. Which I think a lot of Gen Zers are realizing,
Yes.
that we're happier offline.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's more that comes to it, right? Like
Yes.
riding the bike, your example of her riding the bike, there's pride, there's confidence, there's all of these
Yes.
things the screen cannot give.
Exactly. That's exact. I mean, that is what I also was surprised. It's like these offline activities have like multi-layer rewards,
Mhm.
right? And fulfill
Mhm.
multi needs. And right, exactly. Like now Rosie's 10 and she bikes everywhere. Like she bikes
Mhm.
to her friend's house, soccer practice, piano practice, and like her and her friend bike around. There's two other girls now that bike with her that, have
It's
that joined
awesome.
her. And so this is like a lifelong skill she's learning, right? Move around her town. She goes to the store. She goes grocery shopping, like
Mhm.
and she feels great. One of the big problems in our society is kids don't feel like they have purpose. Their
Yeah.
their life that doesn't feel like it's meaningful and purpose has purpose, and what they do matters. And it's one of the reasons why teenagers have such a we have this mental health crisis. It's not just the screens; it's the screen's undermining their motivation to have a purposeful life, right? And
Mhm.
I think I think we can we can give our kids so much pleasure from giving them purposeful activities, helping them cultivate purposeful activities, cooking, baking, creating stuff to sell or give as gifts.
Mhm.
This learning to take care of younger kids. Like Rosie really wants to babysit now. Like that's, and like she's only 10. And I'm like, it's okay. It's a little bit like, but this is purpose. This is meaning
Yes.
and like a useful skill that she can take with her, as she grows up. And my nephew who's 15 now, he came to our house and every night I was making dinner and he was sitting there on Instagram and I was just like, no, I was like,
Put it away.
I'm not gonna cook you dinner while you're sitting there just,
Yeah.
and I was like, come, I just said, come, but I pitched it really positively. I was like, come over here and talk to me and help me cut up these potatoes. And he did, and he enjoyed it. And you could tell like it made him feel pride, right? And
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
he was helping and he was so much happier than sitting there on
Mhm.
Instagram,
Mhm.
making
Mhm.
potatoes.
Mhm. Mhm. So, I mean, it can be disheartening, right? You mentioning black flow, like I am just marinating on that too. The
Mm,
black because
mm.
it's flow, or
Yes.
the dark flow.
Dark flow, dark flow.
Okay,
Hmm.
so like that's gonna marinate in my
I
brain
like
for a
black
while.
flow though. I think it's true.
So I mean that like all this stuff when we think about it, like it can be disheartening, right? Screens are
Yes.
here, they have this like omnipresence. I
Yes.
don't see them going away, although I
No,
say all the time, I wish they would just vanish.
I do
Um,
too. In so many
but
ways.
reading your book, there's a lot of hope in it. And talking with
Yes.
you today, there's a lot of hope and
Yes.
hope for change and hope for the future and hope for our kids and all of that. What gives you hope right now?
After writing this book, just the parents that are like either yes, I read this and I was like I agree so much, and like this is what I want to do, and then the parents that are also like I read your book and we're going to do it. We're going to change and we're going to add more of this into our lives. So that one, the parents.
Mhm,
I think a lot of parents had like I had like a gut instinct that something's off and the messages around the screens weren't right.
mhm,
That
mhm,
this isn't children's ultimate leisure activity and they love them so much. Like this and I think a lot of other parents feel that way too. And I hope that this book gives you permission to like go with that gut feeling
mhm,
and
mhm,
do what works for your family.
mhm,
And just stop caring about what works for other families,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
and do what like kids are different. We have a lot of like addiction in our family, and I think we're more vulnerable to these devices and foods. And so for us, like 2 hours of screen time, an hour of screen time is too much. It's
Yeah,
too much for my
yeah.
kid. And I think I had a hard time having courage to say like, no, she doesn't have to have it, and I'm not taking away her pleasure. I'm going to give her more. And
Mhm,
that's the other thing that gives me hope is that I think our society is starting to wake up to the fact that this is not giving us endless pleasure.
Mhm.
and that we're actually losing out. And we're starting to see the cost and the disadvantages of these things, right? Because we focus so much on the advantages, what it does for us, what it does for our kids, how it gives us more time, blah, 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 that we have been blinded to the cost. And I think the wool is starting to like come off our eyes, and
Yes.
we're like, no, these things have problems, And I, a lot of times people will ask me, but it's just so easy to give the kid the screen. Like, isn't this what you're talking about? Much more work. And I'll say, yes, there is some work. And like you said, you have to kind of get to know your kid a little bit, right? And like get them started. But just giving your kid a screen is also work.
Yes.
Policing it and how it grows and grows and grows. And so we're going to do work either way. And I'd rather do work in the way that really fills and nourishes us.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems like the easy button, but
Yes.
there's a lot of work that has to happen then on the back end.
Yes, yes, there is. And I think this like managing it every day, moment to moment is exhausting. And the
Yes.
data show that, right? Because eventually it collapses. And
Yes.
whereas I hope with this Domain Kids is like you're setting up your environment so you don't have to police it.
Yes.
It becomes like the offline becomes the default, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so yes, there is work, but it's a different type, and then it becomes calmer and more peaceful
Yes.
and you know, yeah, again, I think it's a myth that it's just, oh, it's so easy. Life is so
Yes.
easy when you just give
Yes.
them the screen, right?
I think it's a myth too, but people believe it. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's
It's
not.
it's not. And I've seen it. I've seen it like when I was researching for the book, I see families that really don't have that much screen time and their life is pretty easy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
If you don't have them there and if you follow the rules of like getting rid of the magnets,
Hmm.
the magnets are
Hmm.
there and you're trying to limit, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right too, that the wool is coming off our eyes. I mean, that's why we see like all of the schools working to
Mm.
try and really minimize screens. And we're seeing parents
Yes.
talking about it where we've got artificial dyes being removed from things, right? Like
Yes. Yes. I think so. I
there's
think
an
they're powerful
awakening.
forces, but I think we're waking up
Yeah.
and parents are powerful. And that's the other thing is like a parent, you have so much power over so much of your kid's life. Not the whole thing, right? But even the teenagers, they want help. They tell therapists they want help regulating um and they really kids do care about what their parents think. I said, I'm almost 50 and my mom passed away a couple years ago and I still cared about what she thought,
Uh-huh.
like we what our parents believe and what they do and model and say is powerful over children. It's not just about their peers, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. If you could leave everyone with one thing, like one thing to take away from our discussion today, that's always like the hardest thing. Sum it up in
I
one
know.
thing.
One
What would
thing.
you say? What's your one thing for the takeaway today?
That learning to limit the screens with the right tools, it
Mm,
will add pleasure to your life. It really will. It is not depriving kids. It is helping kids thrive, mentally. And I think that's why I wanted to write the book because I was like, wow, our life is better. I
mhm,
want other families to have a better life too,
mhm.
I want to spread it, just you got to be brave,
Yeah.
and like really like take the first couple and there might be some tears the first day or two, but kids' brains change so fast. If you are firm in it and you are like and you're happy with it, and you pitch it in a positive way and celebrate this offline activity, the kid's gonna celebrate it too. If
Yes.
you pitch it like, oh, this is gonna be so hard, you're gonna hate it, like, don't do that. Like, don't
That's
do
a
that.
recipe for disaster, right?
Yes, exactly. Then the kid's gonna feel like, oh my gosh, this is a punishment,
Yes.
right? But if it's like, no, this is exciting. This is gonna be exciting. This is an adventure. We're gonna have fun. I mean, if you look at pictures of Rosie biking, she is having fun and really enjoying it. You look at pictures of her watching Netflix, and she's just like,
Yes. Yes.
right? Which one is more fun?
Yes.
Like, so that's the other thing is like really focus on all the joy and wonderfulness that offline activities bring us.
Mhm.
Um, It's the same with foods. Like once I figured this out with foods and I was like, I remember the day I was like talking to Rosie and I was like, you know what? You know what the reward and treat in life is the food that I make. I was like, it's not the Dairy Queen ice cream. It is
Yeah.
the like
Yeah.
homemade meals, and I'm gonna start celebrating them and thinking of them this way. And like, so it's a little bit of a mind shift, right? Change in perspective.
Mhm.
Because those the apps and the games they have amazing marketing. They have like
Mhm.
billion-dollar budget marketing.
Mhm.
These, the piano and the bike, it needs its own marketing.
Yes. Yes. So now we need somebody to market those activities. Is what
Yes,
you're
yes,
saying.
and yes, and I'm happy to do it. Like, whenever like for a while when we would see a kid like on the screen at like a restaurant or somewhere, I would just say to him, like, I feel sorry for him. He's missing
Mhm.
out,
Mhm.
Or at the baseball game the other night, like a kid was just on the iPad, and I was like, man, she's missing the game. She's missing her
Mhm.
friends. Like,
Mhm.
you can also kind of focus on kind of that part of it, the negative
Mhm.
side of the screens,
Mhm.
and how much more fun it is to be laughing with my friends than sitting there in a trance,
Yes.
and missing the
Yes.
good part of life.
Yes.
So,
The good part of life is not the screen.
no, no, it is not. It
Mhm.
is, you miss it. You miss the good part. And
Mhm.
in that dark flow state, and I talk about this a lot in the book, like you actually skip past the reward and pleasure part,
Mhm.
and you're just kind of going to the what I want, I want, I want, I want. And so you're losing pleasure. You're
Mhm.
losing, and that's why it's dark. A flow
Mhm.
state is usually really good. It makes you feel
Mhm.
good and happy and optimistic. But this state, you end up and you feel kind of tired, sometimes angry, frustrated, kind of bad. So
Yeah.
it's 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 not a mentally healthy thing to do
Mhm.
for hours and hours every day.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Well, if I could make one suggestion today, so
yes.
everybody should read
Oh,
this.
thank you so much.
Because I'm serious in that, like, I read it, my kids and I have talked about it. My 4-year-old not so much, but I talk very openly with my 7-year-old daughter about why
Oh,
we
it's
look at
good.
screens and what we're doing, um and it's just, I mean, I have pages tabbed and everything because there's like things you can come back to, like we were talking about earlier, like who is my kid, what are
Yeah.
they going to really get from this in a really highly screened, highly processed world.
Yes.
The book is so insightful. As I said, just even for myself, I went, huh. And then I also was like, oh, and my kids. Okay, okay, okay.
I mean, that was the story for me. It was like about me. And then I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, but this is going to be, what am I passing on?
Uh-huh. So they
You
can
know?
get a copy of that. I'm correct. Anywhere books are sold, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. And there's an audio
Um,
book that I read. So if you,
awesome. So I know many people who are like, I don't have time. Like I listen,
yes,
I'm able to like get more in if I'm
yes,
listening because I listen in the car and stuff. So there's an audio
yes,
book as well. And they can learn more about you, your books, everything. You have a blog, like all of
yes,
it on your website, which
on my
is
website. And you can email
Michaeleen.
me there too.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. And it's
MichaeleenDoucleff.com.
Michaeleen Doucleff, right? .com.
Yes, yes. And I
Awesome. And
read
I'll put
every
that in the show
email and try to get back to everything. So.
notes. That's awesome. I
Because
don't
I'm
know
not
how
on
you do.
social media, so I have time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. The lack of
Yeah.
social media is helpful, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And I mean, it
Yeah.
gives me time to, really interact with people like one on one, and I really enjoy it. So please email me if you feel compelled.
Mhm.
Feedback is,
Awesome.
I love feedback. Like this worked, this didn't work,
Hmm.
because we're at the edge of science here, right?
Yeah.
Like the data are just rolling in. And so I always say to people too, like experiment with yourself and your family, like see what works. And once you get your kids started, like, okay, they'll take it off and they'll be like, well, now I want to do this. Now I want to do that. And like, and they'll really grow. And a lot of the replacement activities, teach focus, they teach concentration or people skills too, and I really think these are like the skills that are going to differentiate kids and for jobs and everything, right? It's like knowing how to focus, knowing how to talk to people and interact with people, you know? So it's not the being on an app that's going to help them, you know?
I think let's proclaim that everywhere because I'm all about that too. I'm like, those are the skills that are going to be important for our future.
Yes, that's right.
That's it.
And that people are going to pay money for,
Yes,
right? Because it's going to
yes,
be rare that
yes,
a kid knows how to interact with humans, you
yes.
know?
That's
So
crazy.
I know. But there is yeah, we could go into that too. I see
Yeah.
hope there too.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Michaeleen, for
Oh,
joining
Samantha,
us
thank you.
today. I very much enjoyed this conversation. I think I could just keep talking to you for.
Oh, I enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for having me. It really wasn't, it's an honor and it's been a pleasure. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And here's to creating more moments that stick. Bye, friends.